Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new video. Last night we had the Super Tuesday primary elections, and wow, what a sweeping victory for not just Donald Trump, but Republicans down ballot. And today we are going to analyze all of this, but before we do, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. So that being said, let's jump right into things. First state we're going to talk about is we are going to talk about the state of Vermont, where this is the only state that Nikki Haley was able to pull it off. And as somebody being a northerner, I am not surprised, unlike other people out there on Twitter and other places saying that Nikki Haley is going to be our next president. Those kinds of people are crazy. I'm seeing it all over Twitter. And honestly, there's a lot of crossing over that happens in Vermont. Vermont is 70-30 Democrat, and they have open primaries. So if I'm being totally honest, I would not expect this. And I know some of the polls were way off, where Nikki Haley was losing to Donald Trump by about 37 points in the state of Vermont. I could be wrong, but that's somewhat of the math that I saw. It likely did not account for the open primary that we had going on here in Vermont. And the rest of the polls probably did not account for the fact that some of these primaries are open. Aside from Vermont, however, Trump swept the board in every other single state. We're going to go back to the results page here. If you look at all these states, Donald Trump had decisive Republican wins, even in Utah, which is actually one that I didn't see coming. If this was another state that I kind of thought Nikki Haley had somewhat of a chance in, but she got walloped by about 15 points in Utah, which I kind of didn't see coming. Well, I kind of did at the same time. I knew Trump was going to win, but I didn't think it was going to be by a lot, because Utah is a state where there's a lot of crossing over. It's Mitt Romney territory. There's just a lot of uncertainties that come with the state of Utah. But aside from Vermont, Trump swept everything. So we're going to work our way from north to south by next talking about the state of North Carolina. North Carolina, we had some interesting races that happened here. First of all, president, do I really have to say anything? Donald Trump got about 74% of the vote, which shouldn't be surprising. He got 53 out of the 74 delegates, where Nikki Haley got 7 delegates. And she dropped out, by the way, today. I'll be making a whole nother video about that. Probably that might be up later tonight. But with that being said, Joe Biden won the Democrat primary. That should be no surprise. But I really want to touch on is the Republican gubernatorial primary. Oh, there it is. Never mind. But anyways, Mark Robinson won by 45 points in the state of North Carolina. I kind of thought he was going to win by about 47 or 47. He was going to win with 47% of the vote. But honestly, the polls for this one was another one where it was way off, because I also don't think it factored in the account that Mark Robinson had coming into this. Plus, also, I think that this race, along with several other races, were carried by Donald Trump, with Donald Trump winning, again, almost 75% of the vote here in North Carolina. The Republican lieutenant governor, however, did go to a runoff. I know absolutely nothing about these candidates. I will be making another video, more likely than not, about these candidates. I will do some research before I do, and I will inform you exactly who I think is the more conservative and authentic member of the two that advanced to the runoff. But that being said, let's continue talking about Mark Robinson. Mark Robinson, he's the current lieutenant governor of the state of North Carolina. He's got kind of a strong appeal base. He's already won statewide, and I honestly believe he is the favorite to win right now. He is the favorite to win the gubernatorial election as we go into November. I think he is going to be the front runner to win. He's definitely favored to win. And people are like, oh, Mark Robinson's unalooptable. Those people just don't know what they're talking about. But I really do believe Robinson is going to be the front runner against Josh Stein. Because, plus also, you should take a look at this. Josh Stein got about 476,000 votes, and Robinson got 664,000 votes. I think all these people are going to come home and vote for Mark Robinson at the end of the day, and these 6,000 and 84,000 voters are going to vote for Josh Stein. So, if the math is correct, Mark Robinson could see a very big win on election night in the state of North Carolina for the governor's election, and Robinson is very likely going to become their next governor if my math is correct. But honestly, I think it's going to be much closer than what I just mentioned. I really do. But with that being said, let's continue on to the rest of the state election results. A bunch of other election races down ballot that are worth talking about. The Republican primary for the Attorney General, Dan Bishop, ran uncontested. And likely, because obviously Trump's going to win the state of North Carolina. I think that's set in stone at this point. However, if Trump wins the state decisively, same goes for Mark Robinson and the lieutenant governor, and Dan Bishop becomes their attorney general, that is going to be incredible. Dan Bishop is a member of the House Freedom Caucus and is a very, very strong incumbent when it comes down to that. Anyways, U.S. House races, there's a few things to talk about here. Some of these did advance to runoffs, but I think the biggest one that's worth talking about is more likely than not this one here. Freedom Caucus star Mark Harris. This is Dan Bishop's current seat as far as I'm concerned. Mark Harris won the primary very narrowly, but again, I still consider this to be a win, and here's why. Because funds that would have probably been poured into this race in order to keep this seat red and to help win the general election or the runoff election later on, that money can now be diverted into a state like Ohio or Montana, where it will make it even likelier that we flip back those Senate seats and could also go to help retain more competitive seats in the House, like North Carolina's 1st District, for example, which North Carolina's 1st District, I kind of expected Buckhout to win. She's a very strong candidate, and I think she is well-liked up there. She's also very conservative. I was looking at her issues page. Very solid, for the most part, on all of the issues. However, I do believe the other one would have been a little bit more solid, but you're going to get an upgrade. That's a seat currently held by a Democrat, so it's going to be a big upgrade anyway. Anyway, state legislator, there's not really anything to see here. But aside from this, we are going to get into the next state on our list, which is going to be the state of California. California, I was not surprised. California, as we know, counts votes like molasses. They're still at 49% of the votes in. However, I think what's worth talking about is the U.S. Senate election. While this is the regular primary, where Adam Schiff leads by less than a point over Steve Garvey, and probably that gap will narrow as more and more of the votes finish or continue to come in, because still only 48% of the votes in, so obviously that gap is going to narrow, and Steve Garvey might even overtake Adam Schiff. I'm not going to speak too soon on that, but it is possible at the end of the day. But if we look at the special open primary, Adam Schiff beat Steve Garvey by almost 4 points, which is absolutely impressive for California standards. Is something brewing in California? I really don't know, and I don't have much to say, but is this seat going to go Republican in November? More likely than not, no. I really don't think Republicans are going to flip the state of California, but it is possible because you have that star candidate. I'm not going to rule it out 100%. Well, I kind of am going to rule it out, but unless a magical upset happens in California, Adam Schiff is going to be the next senator from the state of California. And we should also take a look at some of these House districts as well. Valadeo, they still have yet to call this one, but if we look closely, we had some really high performance in some of these House districts, where we're going to start by talking about Kevin McCarthy's old seat, which is this one here. The Democrats got absolutely shellacked in this seat, not even outperforming Mike Boudreaux, or however you pronounce his name, Boudreaux. And Vince Vaughn currently leads. I mean, I kind of want... It looks like Mike and Vince are both going to advance onto the general election. However, I kind of hope Mike pulls it off. He seems to be more like America First type of candidate. Vince Vaughn he's not bad, but he seems to be just this generic type of Republican, which is pretty much nothing special. We don't need to settle for RINOs in these types of seats. We can have authentic conservatives in deep red seats. If this was, say, a Biden +4 seat, I'd say sure. You could make an argument then. But for a seat like this, I don't believe that we should have a RINO. But if we get Vince Vaughn, so what? I think he's going to be he's definitely going to be a big upgrade over Kevin McCarthy, as far as I'm concerned. He may or may not be, but we'll just have to wait and see, and we probably won't know until January of next year when the new Congress is sworn in, how good he will actually be, or whoever will win the outcome of that. However, if we look at some of these seats, Republicans did absolutely great, even in safe red districts, getting over 60% of the vote and running unopposed and uncontested coming up in the later on election, because remember, California uses the blanket primary system. So if one candidate gets over 50%, that's the only candidate on the ballot. But anyways, Pelosi won, that's no surprise. However, it also appears that that Valadao will likely hold on, and it is possible because earlier today, Chris Maths, I think, or someone, it's very possible that within the next couple of hours, or when the rest of the votes continue to come in, that Rudy Salas continues to move down the ranks, and Chris Maths retakes or goes above Rudy Salas, and those two advance to the general, and then you're pretty much locked in. So it looks like it's very possible that some of these seats lock into solely Republican control, and we will be able to hold several seats. And going back to the Senate race, even though Steve Garvey likely will not win the Senate election, he will definitely help us out down ballot given his coattails, and he will very well help us deliver our victory in order to win later this year. But anyway, aside from that, there's really only one more state that's really worth analyzing, and that would be the state of Texas. Texas, as we all know, Donald Trump won the primary, but that's really not what we want to see. Ted Cruz, he won his primary very nicely. He got almost 90% of the vote, or more like 88% of the vote exactly. He did very well. Ted Cruz did very well. He even outperformed Trump up at the top of the ticket, and I think that's just due to Ted Cruz being an incumbent, and he's going to be facing Colin Allred come November time, and Colin Allred is likely not going to be able to take down Ted Cruz, assuming that the rest of this Republican base will coalesce around Ted Cruz and help Ted Cruz get over the finish line, whereas the same thing's going to happen up here. We could see a very big win for Ted Cruz, but honestly, I still think if Ted Cruz wins, he's going to be about 3 to 4 points or more. And remember, 2018, it was a blue wave year, and yeah, 2018 was a blue wave, and Republicans did not put it in, and Ted Cruz was kind of riding the for granted train, and kind of was taking his victory for granted. He's not this time, which is good. But aside from that, we have a lot to talk about in the Texas U.S. House elections, because a lot happened in the Texas House, or the U.S. House elections for Texas. First of all, a bunch of RINOs that voted against Jim Jordan, they either A, got primaried out, or B, they went down outright, or they went into a runoff. For example, Christian Garcia and Alan Garza both got forced into a runoff. Garcia is one of the members, I think, that voted against Jim Jordan. I'll have to look back and I'll put a correction if he didn't. But Tony Gonzalez, who was definitely one of the 20 that voted against Jim Jordan and voted for, that's the wrong, and then Tony Gonzalez definitely voted against a lot of conservative legislation to secure the border and stuff. And he got forced into a runoff with Brandon Herrera, and I hope Brandon Herrera will win, because this is a Trump +7 seat. It's probably going to be more than Trump +7 this time around. And Brandon Herrera, I've looked at his issues page. He's very solid on all of the issues, and he would definitely be an upgrade over Tony Gonzalez. I definitely hope Donald Trump gets in here and endorses him, because if he does, that'll pretty much lock in his victory to win the primary and then go on to win the general election. But I think the biggest ones that we need to talk about, we need to talk about the state house and the state senate. First of all, a lot of the Republicans that voted to impeach Ken Paxton have all gone down in the primary last night. In the Texas legislature, the more conservative Brent Mooney, or whatever his last name is, I think it's Brent Mooney, he went down. So it looks like, it definitely appears that all of the Paxton-endorsed candidates all swept the board and won really decisively. Some of them, yes, got forced into a runoff. However, it definitely came out and looks good for Republicans to possibly help conservative and make the state house and senate and turn Texas in kind of a different direction for the better. It's kind of on this leftward trend. But if we flip a bunch of these house seats in the runoff, which is going to be May 11th, once we flip a bunch of these seats, we're going to get to see exactly what happens when it comes down to holding the state house and getting rid of a bunch of these RINOs. But Dutton went down, which is a very good thing. Schnofer also went down in the Republican primary, and a bunch of these other people also went down. However, I think the biggest one is Dade Phelan. Okay. Dade Phelan went down last night. Well, I shouldn't say he went down, but he's in a runoff. Him being in a runoff pretty much ensures that Covey will likely be the next nominee for the 21st House District in the state of Texas. It definitely locks that in for a fact. Covey is definitely an America First patriot. I looked at his issues page. He has the endorsement of Donald Trump, and he's definitely going to probably be able to go out there and defeat Phelan in the runoff. I'm a little upset that that went to a runoff, but at the end of the day, I strongly believe that he will be able to pull it off. Plus, a lot of these RINO Republicans also either A, straight down went down outright, or they got placed into runoffs, which is great. You'll love to see it. We're definitely cleaning house. A bunch of these candidates are also true RINOs in terms of trying to pass school choice, so this is definitely going to be a big leap forward in terms of the conservative movement in the state of Texas to get school choice vouchers passed, which Phelan also stood firmly against. So, that being said, where are the court races? Because those are the next ones I want to talk about. Here they are. So, Criminal Appeals Court. The RINOs also went down here. Slaughter and Harvey and Keller, the presiding judge rep, and the place the presiding judge and the place 7 and the place 8 incumbents, all of those RINOs also all went down, which is incredible. I was extremely thrilled to see that was going to happen. However, unfortunately on the Supreme Court, that I cannot say the same about that. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But I think Devine is okay. I'll look at who Ken Paxton endorsed in the first place. But the true upholding the law judges definitely took down the more activist judges that put politics ahead of their agenda, and definitely got rid of Ken Paxton's ability to do certain things in Texas to fight back against the Biden administration and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I strongly believe Ken Paxton is going to be able to win his legislature, and strongly appoint and get through and fix a bunch of the laws that this court has overturned in the last year. For example, the Criminals Appeals Court took away Ken Paxton's ability to prosecute voter fraud, and they said it should be up to the individual district attorneys. And I definitely believe that is not a good thing because, well, first of all, if there is voter fraud, he won't be able to do anything about it. Plus, voter fraud is kind of a very political issue that if political issues, if any side does it, you should be in trouble for it. But I strongly believe that the Attorney General should be in charge of that and not a state DA, because state DAs are too politicized and political for that, whereas the Attorney General should be the one that does that. So anyway, the State Board of Education, there's nothing really there. Devine, unfortunately, pulled it off in the Supreme Court. This was really the only disappointing result in Texas, aside from Den Crenshaw winning in a landslide. But, yeah. There's not really much to say. But, either way, very, very good night for Trump and the Republicans as well. And Trump, we're just going to show you right here. Donald Trump won every single state. I'm trying to get to where it is right here. Trump won every single state, as I said, except Vermont. Even Massachusetts he won. Massachusetts is a winner-take-all state. But anyways, I know this was kind of a video that was kind of quick and long. Or I shouldn't say quick, but very quick in terms of talking, very fast-paced talk, 21 minutes long. This was kind of more a report on exactly what happened. However, I strongly believe this video had to be made. It may not be the best video, but I strongly believe that it was okay. It's the first scripted video I did, so I'm going to probably work on my scripts for this channel. But anyway, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if you have any feedback for me, let me know down in the comments. I will read each and every one of your comments and feedback you guys have for me. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great rest of the day.